My name is Christina Gonzalez, and this is a case analysis presentation on IKEA's international marketing strategy in China. So to begin, here's a little overview of the different sections that I'll be covering in this presentation. The first is IKEA's key history. We'll go through a bit of a timeline of IKEA China. Then we'll move on to a SWOT analysis, or a mini SWOT analysis, as I'll explain later. And then we'll go into the major strategies that IKEA has maintained globally and have a special focus on the strategies that IKEA China specifically uses. And then I'll conclude the presentation with some of the recommendations that I've made in my paper. So first, we'll go into the history and background of IKEA. So IKEA is a Swedish home furnishing manufacturer and retailer. It was founded in 1943 by Ingvar Kamprad, and those are his three sons that you see in the picture there. They still own the company along with a larger parent organization. And to begin in their expansion from the very beginning, they adopted a model of franchisees. So they would go out and give these franchisees training in the IKEA concept, and the franchisees would then go to open stores modeled after that IKEA concept that was standardized and is still being used today. So the Chinese expansion began specifically in 1998. They opened their first official store in Shanghai. And then I have a more fleshed out timeline in my case analysis paper, but just as kind of an overview, some of the main points in that timeline were initially the stores in China struggled to compete price-wise. There was actually from the year 2000 to the year 2012, the sale prices on their products decreased by 50%. So they did a lot of adjustment throughout the first chunk of time that they spent in China. And then they very slowly expanded. But then in 2013, there was a big jump in their growth in their sales due to the surging housing market. But even though there was that boost, they still faced some controversies with a major recall in July of 2016. And then in 2017, there was another recall in the US, but they did not choose to do such a recall in China. And then in March of 2017, in October of 2017, there was an offensive or sexist TV ad that they issued, but they retracted the commercial and issued an apology. So they've had sort of a slow start with their timeline, but as of August 2017, they are the largest furniture retailer in the world, with established in 29 countries with 355 stores worldwide, and 149,000 people work for IKEA, and each year there are 2,500 newly designed products that launch. So let's go on into this mini SWOT analysis, and what I mean by mini is that we're just going to touch on the main points. So in a full SWOT analysis, there would obviously be a lot more items that we would discuss, but this is just kind of an abridged version. So internally at IKEA, what are some of their strengths at IKEA China? So number one, they are hypersensitive about the prices that they set their items at. The Chinese customer is especially price sensitive, and IKEA did that by lowering their prices drastically, like I mentioned earlier. And they also have adopted Chinese style in some of their furnishings and the way that their stores are run, and they've also set some service expectations that they don't hold all over the world, such as delivery and home installation. They do that at a very affordable price in China, so that is definitely a strength that they have. And they have identified what I believe to be a really appropriate target audience, which are young professionals. And these are really appropriate because they gravitate towards those Western styles, which is what IKEA is, and they appreciate the global popularity that is IKEA. Some of their weaknesses: they struggle to educate the Chinese customer, the Chinese consumer, about why they should purchase IKEA products. People in this case studies said that they look at those prices, and even if IKEA has a better product, they see that IKEA has higher prices than what is offered by other furniture options in China, and they say, why would I purchase anything from IKEA? So that has been a big weakness, is their education. They also have a weakness in balancing customer experience and retail function. Large section of the case study pointed out that the model of the IKEA store, which is to invite customers to try out the beds and sit in the chairs and sit in their food cafe, was a bit of a struggle in the China market, especially because a lot of people would come and use the store as kind of a social hour, and that was okay, and they wanted to encourage people to come into the stores, but they also wanted people to purchase items, obviously. And then another main weakness is avoiding PR and marketing controversy. So like I mentioned before, that TV ad, and then the recall that they kind of botched their handling of, because the recall was made in the US about a month earlier of an identical product that was still not being recalled in China. So people were saying, well, why aren't you recalling these in China as well if they're unsafe? So they eventually handled that situation, but it still kind of left people with questions. Externally, so what does the external environment do to affect IKEA China? So some of the opportunities that are out there, like I mentioned, the explosion of the Chinese housing market. A lot of people are buying apartments and needing to buy new furniture, so obviously there's a demand for furniture. The growing acceptance of e-commerce and better technology is also an opportunity because, as I'll talk about a little bit more later, IKEA has stated that they want to devote more time into their e-commerce, and that would be something that is a great opportunity. Some threats are industry competition. There are a lot of options for furniture, and so there's a lot of competition. Bargaining powers. It was mentioned in the case study that China has a lot of regulations on foreign companies. So a company that is not based in China has a lot of challenges that they have to face as far as regulation goes, which can really hurt their bargaining power. And also substitute products. So not only are there a lot of other furniture options, there are a lot of copycats, which was also mentioned in the case study. That IKEA hasn't done a lot to combat that, but they try to assert that their products are better. But there are a lot of almost identical substitutes for a lower price. And then I thought I also should mention that this COVID-19 global health crisis that is going around obviously the entire globe is going to affect the ability of IKEA China to keep their stores open, to sell to customers as they usually would. So that puts an even bigger pressure on the opportunity of e-commerce and things like that. So overall, I believe that their competitive position is not currently strong, but they could do a lot to make it stronger with e-commerce and by just putting a lot of effort into building that online presence and having a store that people want to go to online. There is a lot of global uncertainty, and price sensitivity will increase that in a country that is already so price sensitive, and that can be a significant hurdle if you're competing with copycats on price. And IKEA's focus has been on their their brand positioning's price, but they won't ever be able to be the least expensive option. So that's a big hurdle for them. If they, like I said, if they focus on e-commerce, they stick to their target audience and do a lot more relevant marketing that is online, exciting, creative, it can definitely give them a stronger position. So some of the strategies in IKEA, I wanted to mention globally, their global mission is to create a better everyday life for the many people. And that has kind of evolved to this quote, which is to offer a wide range of well-designed products at prices so low that as many people as possible will be able to afford them. So that encompasses things like superior customer experience, their aim to be affordable, and their ability to output really trendy, stylish designs. A negative of this is that they aren't really focusing on e-commerce, or there's nothing that was mentioned about e-commerce globally. But overall, they have a very strong mission, I believe, at IKEA on a global level. So strategy specifically seen at IKEA China. So their main focus is expanding their customer base, and they do that through efforts to adapt to Chinese expectations and adjust prices so that they are competitive. They have continued to lower their prices and have tried to optimize their value chain to reduce costs and maintain quality. And I believe that is kind of their overarching strategy. And some of the goals that they specifically pointed out were that they wanted to increase their store locations by 2020. They wanted to successfully penetrate the e-commerce market, or the e-commerce ability. And this wasn't specifically stated, but this is something that they're trying to do constantly because of this aspirational image that IKEA has. They want to educate consumers on the reasons why they should buy IKEA products, because IKEA products are seen as aspirational in China, not because the people of China don't care about spending a little bit more money on luxury items, but furniture is not considered to be a very visible luxury item, so they'd want to spend it first on something like a watch or a car, something that people are going to see a lot more. So that's a really big struggle and strategy for IKEA China to try and educate their customers. So implementing that, a big change that was made in May of 2017 was a new CEO named Jesper Broden, and he is now the global CEO after working as the CEO of IKEA Sweden. He promises to focus on Chinese expansion in e-commerce specifically, which works great for IKEA China. Some of the same promotion from within was seen with Angela Zhu, who started as the first Chinese employee back for IKEA in 1996, and she's been with the company ever since, and she's kind of risen in the ranks, which I think shows a great care for their people and their trust in these people who've been with the company to implement the changes that they want to make. Another really big implementation of their goals to reach more customers is changing at all levels to adapt culturally. So things like adding red to the color scheme in stores, dropping their eco-friendly angle in China, which is something that is not as important to the people of China, providing affordable home delivery and setup, and making price promotions like Yijia, which is a really insightful thing to do because the Chinese customer is so price sensitive. And also it was mentioned in the case study that IKEA has also been finding strategic partnerships in China so that new expansions would remain culturally sensitive. But an issue I saw with implementation was, are they really educating the consumer enough? There's still this overarching belief that IKEA is aspirational and not something that the average everyday person can afford or should try to purchase. So here are some of my recommendations that I have. So the first would be, and I believe this one is the most important, to definitely go forward with plans of emphasizing the e-commerce function of IKEA. I did a little bit of digging through their website, and I have to say parts of it are really nice and parts of it feel really clunky. So even as of today, which is March 28th of 2020, they have put in some effort, but they obviously still have a lot to do. Even though the IKEA store concept is iconic around the world and they're putting a lot of effort into brick and mortar, a better e-commerce presence would combat the challenges that things like COVID-19 provide and educate customers about the brand. The case study does mention contracting a third party to handle e-commerce activities, which is good, but I think that overall they should create an e-commerce team that is hired by IKEA alone, specifically just IKEA, and have their own team to really focus on this as an angle and how they can improve online shopping experience, and maybe even in the process create some intellectual property that they can have. But I think that if they continue, they'll be able to succeed with e-commerce. Another big glaring recommendation that I have is that they should standardize their safety requirements around the world. So in the case study, it mentioned that different countries had different safety requirements, and even if a government doesn't require certain types of safety, IKEA should take it upon themselves to standardize their safety requirements around the world, because it can come off as, oh, well, why does the US deserve better safety than the people of China? Why do you care more about the US citizen than the Chinese citizen? It can come off as sort of discriminatory. So an easy fix would just to have the same safety requirements for all of their products globally. Another recommendation that I have is using social media in China, which is huge. I studied abroad this past semester, and I met a ton of people from China, and they talked a lot about WeChat, which is not something that we use in the US, but it's a very prevalent social media site in China. I think it would be hugely beneficial for them to kind of hop onto that interior design home improvement train and partner with influencers that are popular, like Marie Kondo that you see right there from Japan, or obviously this wouldn't be in China, but just finding influencers in China that they could partner with to tap into that young professional market, which are going to be the people that are on social media. There was no mention of social media strategy in the case study, which I thought was a huge error on IKEA's part. If they don't really have a plan for something like that in 2020, what good is their social media? What good is their marketing strategy? In all honesty, it's such an important thing in our lives today. And then this was an idea I had that ultimately got rejected, which was the changing the target market of IKEA. So it was mentioned that the IKEA brand is viewed as very aspirational, and I thought maybe it might be a better idea to go along with that perception of an aspirational product and really target the well-off people of China and make IKEA almost a luxury brand in China. But ultimately, I rejected this idea, because it is so far off from IKEA's global mission, which I mentioned earlier. They want to serve as many people as possible and be a brand that's accessible to as many people as possible. So even though you're able to bend on certain things globally, your main core mission, I believe, should be the same in all aspects of your business. Something as major as that. So that is my works cited. I thank you for listening, and hopefully this is 10 minutes. And have a great rest of your day. All right. Thank you.